Okay, so while no one's a huge fan of aging, there's one thing that we really, really don't want, and this is conditions of severe cognitive impairment like dementia and Alzheimer's, and we have to discuss preventative strategies for this.
Introducing the Paramena Bliss Podcast, a show dedicated to unraveling the mysteries of achieving optimal health naturally as you transition into perimenopause and menopause. Get ready to join your host, Dr. Seth Yates, an experienced naturopathic doctor, acupuncturist, and kinesiologist, as he shares his wealth of knowledge acquired from over 40,000 patient visits and 15 years in working with perimenopausal females. Welcome to the Paramena Bliss Podcast.
Hey, I'm Doc Yates. This is the Perimental Bliss Podcast, brought to you by perimentalbliss.com and ablehealth.us. And today I want to talk about 6 factors related with cognitive decline, which we will be listing as kind of dementia, Alzheimer's, things that can play a role, especially for my Perimental Bliss audience, okay, so for perimenopause. So, because this is something I've seen happen to my own family members growing up, and it's pretty devastating. No one would want to watch this for themselves or have their kids watch them go through it. So I want to discuss what are the things that we have some control over, because the two of the bigger risk factors, such as genetics and age, are out of our control. So what other factors can play a role that we can use to have healthy brain function throughout our lives? So for my Perimental Bliss audience, we're going to go through 6 factors, and the first one is hormones. And the reason hormones play such an important role is because studies have shown that early perimenopause and early menopause is linked with early signs and symptoms of cognitive decline, including dementia. Which means when your estrogen drops off early, your brain function's dropping off with it. So here's the interesting part. That link is established. The next question is, well, if we actually get their hormones built back up, will that do anything? And it looks like the earlier you get on track with it, the better the results. And not only that, it seems to make and this is not a big surprise, but the type of hormones that you're using make a big difference. When they look at the older hormones, as opposed to the newer bioidentical style of hormones and prescribing, they don't have a good effect. And that's why there's so many studies like, well, there's mixed results about does hormone replacement therapy make a difference for cognitive decline, dementia. And because when you look at the earlier studies and the earlier style of medications, and when they're using synthetic progesterones, synthetic estrogens, or horse estrogens, taking it orally and not balancing out, it didn't seem to show a lot of benefit. But some of the newer studies, the newer bioidenticals, are showing better effects, and this is the only stuff that we use anyways. And it makes sense. Like if you're putting something in that's synthetic that can go on to those receptors, but yet it doesn't have the same benefit to the receptors, in some cases blocking the receptors, especially those synthetic progestins, not progesterone, you see a lot of symptoms where a natural progesterone has a great effect, and then you get almost the opposite effect with the synthetics. So, balancing your hormones early on, the earlier the better, especially if the one thing I would pay attention, if you do have a family history of early premature menopause, early perimenopause, get on that early. The second thing that you can use to improve brain function throughout your life is there's a lot of herbal therapies that have been shown to improve circulation to your brain. And I'll go through, there's a lot. Number one, this is going to sound weird, but think of turkey stuffing. Anytime you're like, what herb should I use for my brain? Think of turkey stuffing. And the reason being, not because the bread, because that's not going to have any benefit, especially if you look at some of the work they've done with how blood sugar and everything affects your brain function with too much bread, too much sugars. But turkey stuffing has sage, thyme, and sometimes rosemary. But sage and rosemary are herbs that have been used to improve brain function. Those are ones that you can find anywhere. So you can just go to the grocery store and find those. You don't have to go to a specialized store. You can just go get sage and rosemary and drink those as a tea. Other herbs would include things like bacopa, gotu kola. Those are things that have been used to improve focus, concentration, brain function. Sometimes ginkgo, certain extracts of ginkgo, but those are all things that you could use for an herbal therapy to improve your brain function. My suggestion would be, I'd probably do them as teas. I would take a bunch of those, and that's what we do at the office. We take a bunch of them, we combine them all as teas, with the exception of ginkgo. Apparently it's not as water soluble to get those benefits. But the other ones, we make teas out of it. Clients drink that. Better for their memory. The third thing is nutrients. The biggest thing for nutrients, B vitamins play a big role, especially B12, so you need to make sure that you're not low in B12. And there's some amino acids that can play a big role for neurotransmitters as well. So you want to make sure, the biggest thing for neurotransmitters, you want to make sure you don't have any digestive issues. Because if you have digestive issues, you're not breaking down your amino acids properly, so you're not absorbing them properly. So you can buy things like tyrosine, tryptophan, but you want to make sure for sure, as a bare minimum, the B12. The next thing, the fourth point that plays a role with brain function. Now, this is not as common as it used to be. Now, keep in mind, though, a lot of the people who are at the age now, currently, and so we're in 2023 of this recording, a lot of the people who are at the age right now that are at the most risk for cognitive decline were around times when they had more toxins in their workplace. So more exposure to lead with paints, lead in gas. No one really knew anything about the issues with mercury, so the exposures were higher. So I will always test people, especially if there's any history of a workplace exposure to any type of heavy metals or heavy chemicals, always testing for that. And if that is found, making sure we're doing work to detoxify that out of the system. The fifth thing is sleep. You have to sleep well to have any aspect of health. So make sure that you're getting good sleep. Interestingly enough, hormones play a role with sleep. Hormones play a role with brain function. Proper neurotransmitters and amino acids play a role with sleep. They play a role with brain function. Like, a lot of these things all improve sleep. Even some of the herbs that I mentioned, they improve sleep, plus they improve brain function. So you're kind of getting a 2-for-1 for a lot of this. And the sixth factor that you need to address to improve your brain function is exercise. So mental exercise and physical exercise. Just sitting around repeatedly doing crosswords every day is not enough of a mental exertion, because your brain needs change. So just doing the same thing is no longer challenging your brain. You need to be doing new things all of the time. And I know as we get older, we often don't like to do new things and new challenges, but that's exactly what you need to do. But physical exercise as well. You need to challenge your body with new movements, new exercise, things that can improve circulation, force your brain, because the body and the brain are linked. So you need to challenge your body to try new things as well. So, just to review, we've got the 6 things you want to consider to help keep healthy brain function for the rest of your life. That's hormones, the different herbs we discussed. Remember, think turkey stuffing. Nutrients, the main takeaway would be amino acids and B12. If you have a history of exposure to a lot of toxins through your work or from work or hobbies that you've done, look into that. Make sure that you're getting good sleep and exercise. And there you have it. I hope that was helpful. This is Doc Yates signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to the Paramena Bliss podcast. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button and visit paramenobliss.com for more valuable information on how you can thrive during your transition through perimenopause. Join our community of like-minded women who are dedicated to achieving optimal health naturally, and stay up to date with the latest tips, tricks, and advice from Dr. Seth Yates. And we'll catch you on the next episode of the Paramena Bliss podcast.